You are listening to the SDSU podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your host, Andre Hagverdian. Welcome, everyone, back to the SDSU podcast. I'm your host, Andre Hagverdian, joined by Bryant Thursby. What's going on, Bryant?
Nothing much. Good day so far. Nice Aztec win on Friday. And we got a game this week.
Yeah, I mean, now they're in sort of full normal schedule, although they do have a bye coming up after their next game. But 4-1, coming off a blowout win against Colorado State. We both kind of talked about expecting kind of a double-digit win, but I don't know if we necessarily expected 45 points by the offense. Jaden Denegal, I probably played as good as any college football quarterback did this past weekend. Efficiency wise, the deep ball, the short stuff. Um, what did you make of his performance and just the offense in general?
Jaden Denegal had his best performance as a college quarterback on Friday night against Colorado State. He just seemed like he was in rhythm the entire night, and I think Sean Lewis did a really good job helping him get in rhythm, not just taking the deep shots early, but all right, let's get some intermediate routes going, let's get some short routes going, let's get him comfortable real quick, and then we'll take our deep shot and see what we can get with that. Took the deep shot, hit Donovan Brown, touchdown. And as soon as that Donovan Brown touchdown happened, it seemed like he just started pouring in with
Yeah.
confidence out there on the field, and it showed in the way he played. I thought the offense in general. We've been seeing the grades. Aztec Twitter has been seeing the grades that San Diego State was the most efficient offense in
Yeah.
all of college football this past week.
Wild.
That is something that I don't think any Aztec fan could even fathom saying
Yeah.
about a San Diego State offense, let alone, what people thought the offense was a couple weeks ago, even after the Northern Illinois win and then after the Washington State. And this offense just, Colorado State had no answer. Running the football had no answer. Throwing
Yeah.
the football had no answer. Colorado State had no answer to Sean Lewis's offense with Jaden Denegal, Lucky Sutton, Dylan Cardwell, who we'll talk about a little bit. Dylan Cardwell looked amazing in this
Byron
game.
Caldwell.
Or Byron Caldwell. I don't know why I said Dylan. Byron Caldwell
Yeah.
did amazing in this game. We'll talk
Mhm.
about him shortly. Jordan Napier,
Yeah.
he's a dude. We know what Jordan
We knew
Napier
that.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know what he is. Donovan Brown, great deep play. I mean, just could not have gone any more perfect for the offense on Friday.
Yeah. At home, the Aztecs have scored 121 points in 3 games. On the road, they've scored 19 in 2 games. So a big difference there, but at least for the third straight game at home, they were able to put up a lot of points. I mean, so there's two defensive touchdowns in there against Cal, so you got to factor in that. So what would it be 107 points on offense, but still really good. Um, Offensive line, I mean, Colorado State didn't get close to Donegal. I think they had one tackle for loss, Colorado State did, and that was on a really late in the game, garbage time run. So really, they were as clean as you could possibly be offensively up until that last TFL. I mean, and then the three-headed backs. Lucky had over 100. Christian Washington had, I think, only 28 yards on 8 carries, but he got a touchdown. And then Caldwell, as you mentioned, coming in the second half and just looking like he's the best back out of all of them. I know that's probably playing against maybe a tired Colorado State defense. Maybe some backups came in. Maybe they kind of, let up because they knew the score was, 21 points, 28 points, or whatever it was. But Cardwell looked really good. I was surprised after he was the backup running back against Stony Brook. And then after that, he lost that spot, and Christian Washington became the backup. I don't know if something happened in practice or what, but I was surprised that Carwell lost that spot and we really hadn't seen him until second half against the Colorado State, and he showed why he was the number one running back in California as a recruit coming out of San Diego. So they do have three quality running backs, and I'm curious to see how Lucky Sutton's probably still the number one guy, but I'm curious to see how Cardwell is going to factor in a little bit more moving forward.
Yeah, he had an amazing game. Obviously, after his touchdown, we saw him get a little bit emotional, and
Mm,
just the amount of injuries that he's been through, the amount of situations he's been through coming home to San Diego,
yeah,
and having a game like that in front of the home fans, and then having that touchdown run. I mean, he works hard. Cardwell works hard. Byron Cardwell, he works hard. He's a talent. We saw that on Friday, how much of a talent he really is.
yeah,
And like you said, this three-headed backfield of Lucky Sutton, Christian Washington, Byron Cardwell, it's one of the better running back rooms in the country. Um, you got some power, mix of power
yeah,
and a little bit of finesse with Lucky Sutton. Washington's got some power to him too, but he's mostly finesse. Same with Cardwell. You got the speed, a little bit of finesse with him. You get a little bit of everything with this three running back room that we have, and it it's a sight to see when the offense is able to run as effectively as they were able to on Friday, and when they were able to pass as effectively and take those deep shots while
yeah.
also getting the intermediate game going, getting the screen game going, getting that working. Just a pleasure to see.
Yeah, it was the first time San Diego State had two running backs rush for over 100 yards in the same game since 2019. It felt like in the mid 2010s, that was happening every game with Pumphrey and Penny and Chase Price and then Jawan Washington. So it's nice to see them have that again for the first time in 6 years. The we've seen them win games defensively. We've seen them win with special teams, and now we could say they won a game with their offense because the defense wasn't as dominant as they've been. They gave up a late touchdown, which went from 18 to 24. Um, did you see anything that would concern you about the defense moving forward, despite the fact that their rankings and their stats are still really, really good?
I actually thought the defense played well in the first half,
Hmm.
which is where I'm more looking at. Obviously, the second half, there are things to take away. I thought in
Yeah,
the second half, defense started playing more shell coverage and more being conservative, which, we do see from time to time when teams do have big leads. So, not too much concern because it didn't seem like Rob Arch was really like, emptying the treasure chest when it came to his defensive calls. He was being
yeah,
very conservative. He was being very vanilla in the second half, which led to Colorado State's scoring in the second half, going from having 10 points at halftime to scoring two touchdowns in the second half. So I didn't really see too much concern in the second half. In the first half, um, tackling was pretty solid. There were a couple missed tackles, a couple missed opportunities. Defensive line, I felt like the defensive line in the run game got pushed out of their gaps a little bit too often at times. Got pushed out of their gaps, whether it was a stunt call or not. The gaps seemed to be a little bit more open in the run game a little bit with the defensive line. Would have liked to see a little bit more pressure. Thought they got after the quarterback pretty solidly, but a little bit more pressure in that four-man front. But Chris Johnson, Bryce Phillips, another good game out of those two. Owen Chambliss, I mean, we just
yeah.
can stop talking about this guy. Owen Chambliss has been on fire the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's definitely with Tano banged up and not playing, full snaps. Owen has definitely stepped up. The two things I think I can see that might have been a bit concerning, and it was kind of reminiscent of last year. They got beat on a flea flicker for a touchdown. I don't remember. No, I'd have to go back and look. I mean, it might be tough, but there are teams that at least four or five flea flickers on them last year, and I want to say all of them, maybe other than one, ended up being big touchdown plays. And so this is the first time I think someone ran a flea flicker this year, and obviously Bryce Phillips got caught looking in the backfield. So that's something I think that they'll need to clean up, and then kind of getting, as you mentioned about getting pushed out of their gaps, like Jalen Dupree had over 100 yards rushing. And a lot of that was outside runs, which that was a weakness of the defense last year. The edges not kind of holding the gaps and holding the outside area. So that's stuff to keep in mind as they're preparing to move, playing in the conference. Um, but I do agree with you that, some of that second half stuff might have been playing a little vanilla, given the big lead. So, still a win, still a big win, overall. Gabriel Placencia, we can't not talk about him setting a school record, 19 straight field goals made, and it was a 53-yarder, a career long. It wasn't like he broke the record on a 30-yard kick. Like, he had to make a 53-yarder to break that record, so he earned that one for sure. Um, Hunter Green had another solid game. So I mean, so it was if I think we're close to seeing all three phases kind of play a perfect game or a real close to perfect game. Um, but we've seen all three phases play really well in at least two out of the three play in some of these games. So we'll see how they can do moving forward. But 4-1, the vibe around San Diego State is pretty good right now.
Yeah, the vibe around San Diego State and this football team is electric. People are starting to, realize, most people, when they think of San Diego State, they think of the football team of the 2010s, and now they think of basketball. They think of
Mm.
basketball. You even got some San Diego State basketball fans that still are football fans, but don't really pay attention to football. Like, I might have to show up to a game. You
Yeah.
have some basketball fans that are like that. I might have to pull up. And I feel like a big a big boost to the next home game for San Diego State, I think is very dependent on these next 2 weeks, which
Mhm.
San Diego State gets Nevada
Okay.
this upcoming weekend. And then right after that, there's a bye week. And then right after that, San Diego State
Fresno.
goes to Fresno State, who Nevada played this past weekend.
Yeah.
And Fresno State in the first half put up 20 points. Fresno State in the first half put up 20 points. I watched a little bit of that game. And in the
Yeah.
second half, they got very vanilla offensively, and it made them very predictable, which is why they didn't put up any points in the second half. But they got very conservative in their play calling. But when they were not conservative and the game was early in the first half, Fresno State put up 20 points. They were able to do that. They held Nevada to 3 points, and then all of a sudden they got conservative.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting these next 2 games for San Diego State. Will San Diego State come back home 6-1 with the chance to have a massive win on its resume? With I believe the next home game is Boise State, correct?
Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Homecoming on November 1st against Wyoming. Boise comes to town 2 weeks after that. So I think it's November 15th or something mid-November.
Like coming home to facing Wyoming, which is a middle of the pack Mountain West
Yeah.
uh, competitor at the moment in football. Coming home 6-1 would be huge, not only for attendance, but the hype around this team.
Yeah. Yeah, Boise is 11-15. Yeah, I mean, let's get into anything else on the Colorado State win before we move on to Nevada.
I think we hit all of it. Offense was
Yeah.
superb. Special teams was really good between Palencia and Green. Not much to really talk about there because the offense was doing its thing. And defensively, not too much to be concerned about besides obviously the running and the gaps and the one flea flicker with Bryce Phillips not really reading his key and having his eyes in the backfield.
Yeah, in Nevada, 7:30 p.m. Saturday night. It's hard to not, when you think of Nevada versus San Diego State, it's hard not to think about the last time San Diego State played Nevada. Probably the low point in the Brady Hoke era, losing 6-0 at home. I remember that one. I remember walking from the press box down to the press conference room and just thinking like, I don't want to go to that press conference,
Yeah.
because it was morbid and that was pretty much the end of the Brady Hoke era. Not too soon after that, we heard about his, retirement announcement, and so like that, I think Christian Jones, he was on that team. He's one of the few people still on that team, and he was asked at the Monday press conference about that if you remember that. Obviously, he did. But a lot of the people on this team are not here. Obviously, Sean Lewis was not here, but that loss still kind of probably stings with fans. And so, trying to you're not obviously going to redeem that, but obviously playing Nevada, they have a new coaching staff too. They have a ton of new players. Um, so like they both teams kind of were on the same track at that in that year about kind of coaching staff out of favor and things like that. But as I mentioned, San Diego State's only scored 19 points in two road games. So I think that's going to be the focus is to get the offense going on the road because they have not played well yet in those two games. Um, what do you think, taking from what they did against Colorado State, what do you think they could do against Nevada that could kind of jumpstart the offense on the road?
I think San Diego State can run the football on Nevada and they can play smash mouth football. I think Nevada is very beatable on the ground. Um, I think that they can be very beatable through the air too with deep shots. Going up against Fresno State, EJ Warner had himself a pretty solid game in the first half,
Yeah.
and then they got a little bit conservative. But what got him going in the first half is Fresno State established the run, showed that they could run the football, and then it opened up passing lanes for EJ Warner and for him to kind of sling the rock a little bit. So running the football effectively and being effective in the run game, which it seems Sean Lewis has kind of made his identity in this offense, is that over the last couple weeks he wants to run the football.
Hmm.
Whether that's with Lucky Sutton, Christian Washington, or Byron Cardwell, he wants to run the football and he wants to establish it so that way it opens up deep shots and gets his quarterback more comfortable. Nevada is a team that defensively has done pretty solidly so far this year. They went up against Penn State, got
Yeah.
blown out a little bit, then faced Sac State, gave up 17 points to Sac State, 20 to 17. Then they lost at home 14 to 13. The opponent's blanking on my mind right now.
Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee State,
Yeah.
14 to 13. Go up against Fresno State. They also went up against Western Kentucky,
Yeah.
gave up 31 to Western Kentucky. So defensively, Nevada is very beatable in the run game and can also be taken advantage of in the pass game.
They do have two edge guys, Jonathan Maldonado and Dylan La Barbera, who are they're like top edge guys in terms of sacks. They each had, I think they had 2.5 sacks last week and 5.5 tackles for loss. So they have been able to cause some havoc on an offensive line, either in the pass game or in the run game. So I think Christian Jones, Joe Borjan, hopefully he's healthy because he injured his right arm, elbow. Um, he's supposedly on track to play, so hopefully he's healthy enough. But like those guys are going to need to play well and neutralize those guys, and I think they can have success if they're able to play a clean game against those edges.
Yeah, it's gonna be a battle in the trenches for San Diego State offensively. Um, I think defensively for San Diego State, Nevada made a QB change this past week,
Yeah.
going through a different quarterback. And they struggled in the first half against Fresno State. Then Fresno State played a little bit of vanilla, and then they were able to come back, which made the score 20 to 17, which made it so close. If you watch the game, at least in the first half, it was not that close at all, and it didn't seemingly feel like Nevada should have been in that game, but they ended up getting back into that game due to some conservative play calling by the Fresno State coordinators. This is a this is an offense that I believe San Diego State can take advantage of and force turnovers. An inexperienced quarterback that Nevada is bringing into the fold, new roster. I think this might be the Trey White game. I think this might be a game where Trey White ends up with 2+ sacks. I think Trey White can dominate against Nevada's offensive line. I think Salvati can dominate against this offensive line as well. I think the defensive line can do really good up against Nevada. And this could be a game where San Diego State leaves Reno with the defense having 5+ sacks in the game.
Yeah, the you mentioned the turnovers. They lead the FBS in most turnovers. They have 14 turnovers through 5 games. Compare that to San Diego State only having two, right? The opposite ends of the spectrum. But they've thrown 10 interceptions. Now, eight of those came from Chuba Purdy, who is probably not going to be the starter. Or Jeff Choate wouldn't commit to starting Carter Jones, who's a true freshman that came in and scored threw two touchdowns against Fresno. But he said that multiple quarterbacks will play, but then he also said it's not helpful for us to tell you guys who's going to play because it doesn't because the other side will know. So there's a lot of gamesmanship, but I think Carter Jones is probably going to be the starter and play most of the snaps. But yeah, their turnovers have really hurt their offense all year. Um, but Carter Jones was impressive. I mean, he's a true freshman, so he lacks the experience. And sometimes when you come into a game and the other defense doesn't know you, it's easy to have that immediate success. But then when a team has a week to prepare for you and you don't have that like kind of with surprise element, it's a little different. It doesn't mean he's not going to play well or he can't play well. But I think kind of stepping back and saying, okay, that second half was good, but we're going to be able to prepare for him. The Aztecs are going to say that to be able to know exactly how he plays, what they like to run with him. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of success or non-success he has in his first start when the other team knows about him coming in.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to watch and to pay attention to. In my opinion, I think he has a lot of talent, truly.
Mhm.
He showed quality arm talent. He does have the ability to get out and run. He does have that ability. Will he use it or not against San Diego State? Don't know. We'll see on Saturday. But he does have that ability. And I think San Diego State can really take advantage of a young true freshman in the pocket, and I think Rob Barich will do a good job of kind of stemming and mixing formations up against Nevada. I don't think he's going to try and give away too much. Obviously, he's probably thrown the treasure chest out and done a lot defensively, but there might be
Yeah.
some wrinkles that he doesn't want to show Fresno State, which is a massive game, assuming that San Diego State leaves Reno with a W.
Yeah, they haven't done a ton in the air. Not the receivers don't really have a ton of yardage, but one familiar name, or at least a name people will know, is Nate Burleson the second. Obviously, the son of the former NFL player Nate Burleson, who played for the Seahawks and some other teams, um, a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago. But Caleb Ramseur has been their top rusher. He had 77 yards against Fresno State. But yeah, as like the turnovers have really set them back offensively. So that's a focus I think San Diego State's gonna want to have is creating those turnovers. Um, on the road, as we talked about, they haven't not played well offensively on the road, but they've obviously only kept Northern Illinois to 3 points, but against Washington State, the defense did struggle, especially in the second half. So this is a game I think San Diego State has to win. They're about a 6 point favorite. They want to have a chance to be in that conference championship game. This is a must-win game, I think, because you probably need to go at least 6-2, maybe even 7-1 to be a top two seed in the conference. Considering UNLV, you don't play UNLV this year, and you play Boise, although it is at home. So you want to be in a position where you're not. Um, Having to beat Boise and win out to make the top two. So these are games against Nevada that you have to win if you want a shot at that.
Yeah, these are games that are absolute must-haves. These are games that you cannot falter in. If you're San Diego State going up to Reno and everything, you cannot falter. You need to, not saying it needs to be a dominant win because a win's a win. You can win 20-10, you can win 20
Right.
to 17, 10-6, whatever the score is. Just as long as when San Diego State leaves Reno on that flight back to San Diego, they leave 5-1, not 4-2. That is going to be
Yeah.
the key for Sean Lewis's group because coming out of Reno 5-1, heading into a bye week on a good note after a win, and getting that extra week to prepare for a really tough, gritty Fresno State team. That I know Sean Lewis and co wants to bring that oil can back to San Diego.
Well, they already have it, but they want to make sure it keeps stays here, I guess. Because they didn't play last year, which was really
That's
odd.
right. They did not play last year.
Yeah, and the last game in Brady Hoke's
Was the
career,
Fresno State win was the blowout at home,
yeah, and so
which
they
was
still
shocking to everybody when that happened.
it was for sure, and I think not playing last year, but so they still have it, and they want to make sure it stays here in San Diego. And you know how ever since Sean Lewis got the job, he doesn't mention Fresno by name. He says that team up north. So they've definitely
There's definitely a
hyped up
little
that.
build up. There's a little
Yeah,
build up there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's something that San Diego State fans have been loathing for is a rivalry in football. And Fresno State was that rivalry for a long time. It was Boise State and previously BYU when BYU was in the conference. But
Yeah.
getting a little hype around that rivalry again, in on this campus and in the San Diego State fan base, and also with the football team could be huge going into Clovis and
Yeah.
Fresno.
Yeah, as we said, Saturday night, 7:30. I believe it's a CBS Sports Network game. San Diego State will look to win their second game on the road in a row. They've got a three-game winning streak. Um, as we talked about, it's a must-win. They're gonna approach it that way, and we'll see what happens. Any final? Actually, do you have a prediction?
I do have a prediction. I also have a key player to look at on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball, key player I want to look at is not going to be the quarterback or running back or not even Jordan Napier. It's going to be Mikey Welsh.
Hmm.
It's going to be Mikey Welsh. Mikey Welsh is a key player to look at for me. I feel like after seeing San Diego State take the top off the defense and kind of attack the deep threat with Donovan Brown and Jordan Napier, Nevada's going to try and key on that and make sure they don't get beat deep. And Mikey Welsh has been that kind of route running, find the hole in the defense, sit down, be available for Jaden Denegal. So I feel like Mikey Welsh can have the opportunity to have a good game, a really good game here against Nevada. Really good route runner, solid speed. It's just whether or not Denegal trusts him. And it seems like Jaden Denegal trusts Mikey Welsh and trusts his receiving core to make plays for him. So Mikey Welsh is my key and player to look at for this offense. And defensively, August Salvati is going to be my key. Obviously, I said that I believe Trey White's going to have a two-sack game, but August Salvati is the key to Trey White dominating in this game. So that way he doesn't get chips and double teams. Is Salvati's able to dominate early and create pressures on whoever the quarterback is for the
Yeah.
Nevada, whether it's the young quarterback or if it's Purdy, whoever it is, creating pressures so that way they can't keep shipping Trey White and they do have to help everywhere else will be key.
So what was the prediction?
Prediction: San Diego State goes into Reno, gets a W, comes back to San Diego State 5-1 after a 24-10 victory.
I was gonna say 24-13. So we're close. We always seem to be kind of close, which makes sense since we're have a lot similar viewpoints. I think it's another game they should win by double digits. Obviously, penalties and turnovers will factor into that, but I think if they can play a clean game, they have the potential to win by more than two touchdowns. But I'd say 24-13 sounds like a game on a road that they can walk away from.
Easily. Not stooping down to Nevada's level in turnovers is also going to be a huge key in this game. Obviously, you spoke on it 14 turnovers for Nevada, two for San Diego State. If San Diego State's going to come out of this with a W, you absolutely cannot turn the ball over more than you have already this season in 5 games.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us as always. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe on our YouTube channel or whatever audio platform you are listening to. And we will talk to you guys next time. listening to the SDSU podcast presented by the East Village Times with your host, Andre Hagverdian.